General Medicaid warning. The views expressed in 5-ish minute lore, the lore delivered in rants, are sanctioned by their scholar progenium as excess rageous. Prolonged exposure can result in loss of IQ, high blood pressure, random outbursts, and blunt force trauma to the skull, resulting in unconsciousness. Please consult your local physician for more information.
Ex-Inquisitor Fidus Kryptman. Fidus, hero of the Macarian heresy Kryptman. Fidus, inject that recaf into my fucking eyeballs, Kryptman. And Fidus, the ends justify the fucking means, Kryptman. When the Inquisition conjures up the gall to accuse you of being a homicidal maniac, you can know for certain that you are truly an absolute mad lad.
The Inquisition is about as gentle as a razor wire back rub and about as apologetic as one too. For 10,000 years, the only ones who may have overmatched them in sheer dickishness, from time to time, has been the Dark Eldar. But even the BDSM-loving knifers wouldn't dream of doing some of the stuff the Inquisition has done for the hell of it. But what do you expect? The Inquisition claims the only ones they answer to is literally God, and not only that, everyone believes it. Power only exists where people believe it resides, otherwise half the systems in the world today would fall apart. The Inquisition wants everyone to be fully aware that they are the power, and they don't mind pumping a few planets and wiping out a few billion just simply to prove a point, and the amount of times they have done this is simply staggering. Wiping out a hive world because someone whacked off with rusted barbed wire while singing a Deftones song wouldn't be too beyond them, and yes, I did reference all 4 Chaos Gods when I said that. To be perfectly clear, to make sure things go exactly as the Inquisition wants them to, they'd be perfectly happy wiping out entire planetary populations, and the only thing they'd write in the report would be a vague reference to collateral damage. That's absolutely fucking terrifying and batshit insane. Now imagine a guy who scared the hell out of other Inquisitors.
This recaf is probably the most unsatisfying mug I've ever had to drink, Deathwatch.
Inquisitor Lord Kryptman of the Ordo Xenos arrived in orbit of the ocean world the Tyrant one day and found it weird that the ocean world was now oceanless. Upon closer inspection, he found out that shit had gone down in a bad way, and he promptly named the 82nd species of sentient life that he himself had discovered.
The space bags of death! What?
He just simply named them after the planet they had killed first, which was named Tyrant, and so the Tyranids. Upon naming the 82nd species, he did exactly what he did with the 81 that preceded it, loudly and proudly declaring that they should be exterminated. He then began to write the book on how to fight them, which was subsequently banned and burned by the rest of the Inquisition for being too extreme. The first thing he did after naming the murder roach was to try to communicate what he was seeing, only to discover that the genocidal grasshopper's sheer presence could make astropathic communication impossible. Trying to get the word out about the death beetles, he set course to the planet Thandros, only to find that the killer caterpillars had made it there before him.
Fucking damn it!
Finally, he was able to get a message out after salvaging a few parts that remained on the dead world, and he got some orders. Go to Macragge, tell the Ultramarines, and help Marnius Calgar give the angry ants the Imperial fisting. The Battle of Macragge was about as insane as you imagine. The entire first company of the Ultramarines died screaming for their spiritual liege.
And then we won. Is that so? So after your men were slaughtered, and you, almost literally, had your ass handed to you by the superior hive tyrant, known as the Swarm Lord, you then won. Instantly and without explanation.
Yes, well, a couple of things happened.
And the Ultramarines were supposedly so depleted it would take, quote, many long years, end quote, to replace its losses. But considering this happened when Matt Ward was calling shots, it took all of 15 minutes, and another plot point the Ultramarines could be shoved into to make them look better than everyone else, and thus ended the first Spacebook War, or the Tyrannic War if you want to be more specific about it. Now at this point, Krypton dedicated himself fully to understanding the menacing moths and their ways, and he started coming up with a few ideas on how to solve the Imperium's problem. You see, the killer bees show up to a planet, and within a short time they overrun its defenses, strip it of all life, and leave behind a barren husk. These creatures and a few of my exes have a lot in common, but just like my exes, what typically happened before all life was annihilated, communication will be cut off to outside sources. This is called The Shadow and the Warp by Kryptman, or I Want to Know Who Your Mom Is in Your Context by a narcissistic bitch who will remain nameless. After the defeat of the first Hive Fleet, the Death Dung Beetles had disappeared but came back without warning in the form of Hive Fleet Kraken, proving the murder hornets were most definitely like my exes! We don't really know what all happened during this time period with Kryptman, but suffice to say he was well involved in battling back Hive Fleet Stacy. Sure enough, the second time the leeching locusts were wiped out, there were already signs of a third invasion. Kryptman led a Deathwatch kill team and joined up with a plucky band of intrepid heroes and fought off a tendril in the newly named Hive Fleet Leviathan by capturing something called a lictor and making a poison out of it. But then he was faced with the latest question: how to handle the rest of the Hive Fleet. The homicidal horseflies caused Kryptman to form an entirely new form of foreign policy. Leviathan kept cutting a swath through Imperial territory, slaughtering entire planets and adding their biomass to his form. Kryptman decided flat out he wasn't going to allow any more Imperial citizens to die to the foul Xenos. Oh no! He'd handle the killing his damn self! He took one look at where the Terror Termites were going, a sector called Octarius, and promptly decided that every fleet in it was going to catch an Exterminatus.
What the fuck?
In one move, Kryptman had told the Hive Fleet to hold his beer as he inflicted the largest genocide against the Imperium since the Horus Heresy. Now, just to be clear, your stock standard Inquisitor gives less than a quarter pound of fucks for a body count in the billions, but this is a bit much even for that organization. Kryptman had just popped an entire sector, in much the same way that an Inquisitor would order the bombardment of a city, much less a planet. The Imperium's upper echelons as a whole told Kryptman to go fuck himself, and he was declared a traitor, and the only reason he wasn't arrested was because of his distance from the rest of the organizations involved, which really isn't surprising, considering the last guy to kill that many people was fucking Horus. He was almost instantly stripped of his title and evicted out of the Inquisition, most likely because he was making everyone else look bad, especially when a pack of orcs claimed a bunch of the burning worlds that Kryptman had just depopulated. Kryptman was just too busy being the exterminator though. Octarius Sector, call him the Orchid Man, and when a space hulk full of gene stealers appeared, he had an entire brood captured and had the bright idea to promptly throw them at the newly forged Orc stronghold in Octarius. Pretty soon, the entirety of the Hive Fleet was pulled right into the heart of the fledgling Orc Empire. Now, this has good and bad things. Good thing, Hive Fleet Leviathan has been temporarily stopped. Bad things, Kryptman has just pitted the two species that literally get stronger the longer they fight, and he pit them against each other, which means the longer the two sides fight, the more powerful they become. Because of Kryptman, the cannibal cockroaches are fighting a prolonged war where they do nothing but gain biomass, and the orcs keep regrowing at such a ridiculous rate, the only thing consistent is the numbers are constantly getting higher. What we're left with is the possibility that orcs in the Octarius sector are getting constantly bigger than ever, and the death wasps are constantly absorbing more and more orc DNA that only makes them tougher. Eventually, because of Kryptman, one of those two sides will win, and no one wants to know which side is going to win because no matter who wins that war, humanity will lose. But for all of its horror, for all the death and destruction that Kryptman has caused, for all the bloodshed that he has done and the tragedies waiting to happen because of his actions, he still wins in my book. Why do you ask? Simple. From inside the Eye of Terror, for all his bluster, for all his hate and anger, all Thalbadon the Armless can do is sit there and see that once again, someone is better at killing Imperials than he has ever been. Suck it, you armless fuck!
Hello, Homicide.
What are you doing here?
Yes, I'd like to ask why you haven't addressed a certain promise you made a short while ago.
You mean a 5-minute lore about you?
Yes.
I'm a busy guy, Trazen. I'm getting to it.
Well, we'll just have to make sure we do that, won't we?
Oh, shit!